Hello, today I'm going to talk about an algorithm for voice analysis. So at first this exercise was given by Mr. John Chaussard for first introduction to MATLAB in a bigger scale, so for engineering. So a project that is big enough that it could be asked by a company. So the goal of the exercise was to differentiate between yes and no by the only hypothesis that the yes is in two parts, the yeah and the s, while the no is only one big part, which is the no in one syllabus. So this exercise can seem really hard, but we had some pretty good hints that were very helpful. So at first, what's a sound wave? So a sound wave is a sum of signs because it's how we consider it in terms of harmonics. So like a piano, piano, a violin are set into different frequencies. So you can sum them if you are considering sound as music. So the sound is just a sum of sine and sine something times dx, which is um, um, just an integer times a constant usually for the same system. And what is in front um, of the x is the frequency. So at first we will consider some tools of the harmonic problematics. So the discrete Fourier transform. So we will consider the complex plane, but it's also work with the real plane. So on the left part we have our signal, one of our signal, and the right part we have the signal that had a discrete Fourier transform. Obviously, since it's discrete, it doesn't go from minus infinity to plus infinity, but a big enough number to be representative. Here is a quick demonstration on how to, on one way to get the coefficient of the discrete Fourier transform. So basically you have a sequence an that is linked with the power that is in the nth power that you sum them. So you integrate from both sides. When you integrate from minus infinity, you can swap the sum and the integral. And the integral, when this part n minus k is not 1 or not 0, then the integral is equal to 0. And when it's 1, it's equal when it's 0, it's exponential of 0, and exponential of 0 is 1. So you get the integral of 1, so you end up with integral of 1 dt. And so when you integrate for non k, you get the integral that is valued to 0 because of the symmetry. So I'm not going to go too much in detail. And then when it's equal to k, then it cancels out. It's equal to integral of 1. And then you can get, using an integral method, the coefficient c of the discrete Fourier transform. So basically, what does it mean? It means that you can express a signal as a sum of sines and cosines with a certain coefficient in front, so the coefficient an, and a certain frequency n. So and obviously you can do the backward step, which is called the inverse Fourier transform. which is just summing a bunch of cosine and sine, a bunch of sine. So here is the MATLAB algorithm. So at first I consider the path, so which is the step. The step here will be the inverse of the frequency, because if you have the frequency of 16k hertz, then it means you have you have the inverse in terms of steps. If you I consider from the previous step an x, and I just take the transpose, and I take a double because I will do operations on it. Then I count the number of elements of x, and I call it big N. Then I call the maximum Tmax to be equal to n times the step. So I get the max amount of the duration of the signal. Also, I didn't mention, but Fs is the frequency, it's given. T is a vector that goes from 0 to Tmax minus the step, with a step that is equal to pa, which is the step. So it's a discretization of our system. So now I do various stuff related to MATLAB to do the Fourier transform automatically, which is very convenient for engineering especially. So then I transform it into the Fourier world. So once I reach these steps, I have the whole Fourier transform, and we will see that a bit later. So in terms of technology of the transductor, so transductor is a device that transforms a physical measurement into a discrete signal with a certain frequency Fs. In French, it's called the fréquence d'échantillonnage. Some problem might occur. So when you start recording, you can record mouse click and key presses. So like here, you listen to the key press and the keyboard. Oops, I spoiled. So to cancel out this effect, we will put to 0 the signal, the 10 first seconds of the signal. So now back to our Fourier thingy. We apply the discrete Fourier transform, and we get this thingy here. So you can notice that it goes from minus a bunch of stuff to plus the same bunch of stuff. So to do a proper useful Fourier transform, we should have used symmetry and just put the part that is negative and add it to the positive part and just plot from 0 to the positive one. But I just wanted to show how it's calculated in MATLAB. So in MATLAB, since you have since you are dealing in the complex world, and this is what you get. So if you want a real Fourier, you need to add the part in the minus to the plus part, and you get a proper one. What we can notice is that for some small frequencies, you have big spikes. After, you have small spikes. That's pretty much it. So these spikes are due to the human voice. Yeah, the human voice. So after doing some research, the human voice has some noise that are below 3k hertz. So what I do is just in the Fourier diagram, I put to 0 all the values that are below 3k8 in absolute value, and then I do the inverse Fourier transform. So I come back to this world, so the world of frequency. In blue, you can see here the signal in blue, the signal that is not transformed, and in red, the signal that is transformed using our system. So once we do that, we can move on to the next part. So now it's a bit tricky. We want to know when the user talks or not. So now we need a bit of mathematical artifacts. So we will consider the two means. So the first one will be the low mean, that is the usual definition of mean. So just the mean over the absolute value, because we just take the absolute value of the signal and we take the mean. And then the I mean, moyenne haute. So basically we do a mean over the absolute values of the values that are above the mean. So I build sub x the values so that the absolute values of x is superior to MB, so the usual mean, and I call AMH to be 1 over the numbers of elements in sub x, so the numbers of elements that are in absolute value over MB, and then you sum all the elements that are over MB. So once doing a little artifact, so this means that here you have the mean in the absolute value, and here the mean of the values that are over the mean in the absolute value. So mean over the mean. It's complicated. So now we will consider an envelope of detection. Oops, there is a little bit of miss here. So we want to detect if the user is talking. So we call V the interval of values for t in t minus 19 milliseconds, t plus 19 milliseconds. So here it misses. So in this range, we will do several operations, and we will consider that if 1% or more of the values in V, so the interval of the values for minus t minus 19 second, t plus 19 second, 4 values of t, then it means that the signal, the envelope, that is called signal, will be equal to 1, and then if it's below the moyenne haute, the I mean, it will be equal to 0. So if it's over the mean at 1%, it means that you will consider that the user talks. So this is what it looks like. So here you see that there are small spikes, but it doesn't go over the I mean. And here you see that there are big spikes, and you can notice that in red, this part here considers when the user is talking. So 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0. So once again, I repeat that it's 1 whenever 1% of the interval minus 10 seconds, minus 19 milliseconds plus 19 milliseconds as 1% of values that are over the moyenne haute, so the I mean. So here, for example, you can see that here there is a big spike and not very much here. So we can assume that the mean is around something like here. So here, and you can see that this distance must be circa the 19-second interval, because here it's the spike. So morphological dilatation. So I will explain later why we need a morphological dilatation, but first we will apply morphological dilatation. So The first thing we do is we consider only the instance in which the user talks. So we build x3 to be the previous signal that was retransformed after, so that was inverse transformed after the Fourier transform called x2. So we call x3 the signal, the signal x3 to be the x2, but when the envelope is equal to 1. So basically you will concatenate this part when signal is equal to 1 with this part when the signal is equal to 1, and just delete those elements when the signal is equal to 0, here also and here also. Now we do another transform, which is called the morphological dilatation. So in the interval t minus, so for all t, obviously, in the interval t minus 6 milliseconds, t plus 6 milliseconds of the previous signal, we take the maximum. We will see later what it looks like. So now we do a polynomial interpolation. So we interpolate the morphological dilatation with a polynomial of order, we will see later, using built-in function polyfit and polyval. So these are built-in functions, but we can also use the Lagrange interpolation, but it's just a waste of time, but it's not really hard. And we will call R the difference between the interpolation x5, so the interpolation of a polynomial, and x4, the morphological dilatation. So this coefficient will be like the Reynolds number in hydrodynamics that splits between two regimes, or the Biot number. So it's a characteristic of our system, but it's not really precise, and that way it acts like the Reynolds number. Okay, so now what it looks like, we got in blue the morphological dilatation, so we can see that locally it's equal to the maximum in the interval minus 6 milliseconds plus plus 6 milliseconds, so it's morphological dilatation in blue, and we interpolate it with a polynomial over certain order. So in the original question, they said of order 2. And when I read that, I said, okay, order 2, why order 2? So I just thought about it, and I said, okay, so order 0, it would mean a constant. Is it interesting to have a constant to differentiate from the yes to the no? No, because the yes has 2 spikes, because as we said previously at the beginning, the yes is yes, so this graph is a yes, and no would be more uniform. So no. Would a first order work? Yes and no. Why? Because for the no, it would be a pretty good approximation, but for the yes, a first order would not work, because indeed you have those spikes, but since they are average, you will get a pretty uniform, like a line that is like almost like this one. Why would it not be a third order? Because if you have 3 points, like if you say in the top, in the bottom, and in the top, you can always find a polynomial of order 3 that passes those. So the coefficient R would be very good, so very close to the approximation for both no and yes. For the order 0, it would be circa random, because it's uniform. For order 1, for both, it would be pretty equivalent. But for order 2, for the no, since it's rather uniform and diminishing, because no, so it diminishes. So so you get a polynomial that looks diminishing. So which is why no is a good approximated well with a second order polynomial, and why the no is not by second order polynomial, because you have one spike, one not spike, and one other spike, and a second order polynomial cannot do that well. You can think that maybe you can build an uprising polynomial of order 2, but it does not work because the spikes are too close, and it does not work practically. So so there is in fact, in practice, there is no good approximation of the morphological dilatation of the yes by a second order polynomial. So the coefficient r will be high for a yes and low for a no, which is very useful because we wanted to have a difference between the yes and the no. So once we reach this step, we have a coefficient here, r, that would reflect the quality of the difference between our system by hypothesis. So now we will compare to a database. So in the exercise we were furnished a bunch of yes and no into with different accents, with different hashing, with a different length, and we needed to compare it with our algorithm. So what we do, we calculate the value of r for all of them. We store into two vectors yes and no, and both of them just store the value returned by the algorithm, so the value of r. So what we will notice in the next diagram is a neat distinction between them, but some of them are crossing the line. Also, it takes nearly 1 hour 30 to compute all of them, so I recommend to store the value. Once you do the step of calculating the R for all of them, you store them using the MATLAB right click and save as, so you can reuse it later, which is very convenient. So this is what the diagram looks like. So you can see that on the bottom you have the red part, and on the top you have the blue part. So you can see that there are two distinguished parts. You can see that in general blue is above and red is below. You can see that sometimes here the blue is clearly below, and it's not great because our system works based on that. But unfortunately, that's one of our problem of our system, because sometimes it does not work, and that's pretty sad. It does not work. So what we do here is say, okay, so we'll say that there is a limit in which we don't know, and we want to have the highest percentage of being correct, so that if it's over, it's a yes, and if it's below, it's a no. So we want to have R limit. So what I do is I compute R limit for, I trace the percentage of error as a function of R limit, and I get this diagram, which looks like a Gaussian, but okay. And then I take the limit, so I zoom in this part, and the maximum here peaks at 70.05%. So we have, by taking a limit that fits this point, so I think it was a limit of 1993, I think, for this this limit. And then we have an accuracy of 70.05%, which is great, but not sufficient enough, and unfortunately that's the problem of the exercise. The exercise required a user interface, but I'm not really good at user interface. I'm not going to go into much into detail. So basically, I made an interface that when you press calculate, it says processing. So it starts recording your voice for 3 seconds. Then it calculates the R using the algorithm. Then it compares it to the R limit that is hardcore, that is stored in hard, so manually stored in the algorithm, and then it compares to print a yes or a no. So in this box, and it also shows the envelope in red signal and the signal recorded. In this document, at the time I didn't have a microphone to test it, but which is why the signal is empty. But it works. It works. I swear it works. So, in conclusion, we have built a system that works more or less. So it's not very precise, but it's fine. We can export it using MATLAB compiler, so it's useful for working with companies. So if you have something, a software, you can export it. Okay, it works. And also we can extend it to any real complex and quaternionic world, because it's a study of waves, and waves you can deal with them. Also we can use the the parts like the Reynolds number and the Biot number, so numbers to evaluate the properties of a system that are purely statistics, in order to characterize our system, to give it properties. So that's all for this. If you have any question, feel free to ask them in the comments. I'll be glad to answer them. Blah blah blah. YouTube. Blue thumbs up. Blah blah. Bye.